Rodney's not gonna take my board home, is he?
Hi, my name is Laura Stinchfield, and I'm a professional pet psychic. I teach humans and animals to understand each other better. And what I do is I can ask them or tell them anything. And the way I do this is by transferring their thoughts, their feelings, and their pictures in their minds into words. One of the most interesting stories that ever happened to me is I was about 12 years old, and I was in this very remote part of Florida called Sandestin, Florida, on the Gulf of Mexico. And it was in the news that there was this fishing derby and no fish were caught at the fishing derby, and that was like highly unusual and nobody knew where the fish were. And so my friend and I liked a good challenge, and so we said, let's go hunting for worms and then go down to the docks and go and try and go fishing. So we went and we dug up the worms and we got her father's fishing poles and we went out to this little inlet. We were fishing and we were there for a good half hour, 45 minutes, and there was no fish. And there was no fishermen to be found. There was just a few old men on the docks, on the other docks. And so my friend started to tell me that she was an atheist. And I said to her, well, I don't really know what an atheist is. Like, what does that mean, you're an atheist? And she said, well, an atheist doesn't believe in God. And so I thought to myself, well, I don't know if I believe in God. My grandma and grandpa go to church, and my mom believes in fairies, and my dad sees ghosts, but I don't necessarily know if I believe in God. And she's like, yeah, I've decided I'm an atheist. And so I thought, I wonder what that means. And so I thought, well, what could I do to get God to prove himself to me? I was thinking that maybe we could catch some fish, but then I thought that's not going to really prove to us that there's a God. And so I thought, well, maybe if there was like fish everywhere jumping out of the water, that might prove that there's a God. Or fish like fell up onto the dock out of the water, jumped up and was like flopping on the dock. That might prove there was a God. And so I'd picture that whole scenario in my head. So then I said to my friend, you know what? I'm going to ask God to show himself. So I stood up on the docks and I spread out my arms like this and I said, if there's a God, there would be fish. And literally, as far as the eye could see, fish were springing out of the water, and there was like ripples. I'll never forget it. There were ripples, and this one fish came up onto the dock and like bounced. And at that moment, I was so scared that I peed in my pants. And me and my friend like freaked out. We grabbed the fishing poles and we got back on her bike and we rode our bike all the way back home. We never told anybody about it. The oddest thing is that we never even spoke to each other about that moment. It was like so frightening and like so amazing all in one that we just like felt like we couldn't voice it. One day when I was in my 30s, I was sitting around with my friend and another friend, and she said, well, when was the first time you believed in like a higher power? When did you actually believe that there was a higher power? And I said, oh my gosh, I've never told anyone this story. And this was before I learned that Jesus, multiplied the fishes. And I said, but I have to tell you this story of what happened to me when I was a kid. And I told her the story, and she says to me, Laura, that doesn't prove there's a God. That just proves you can talk to fish. And I was like, oh, you're right. So the moral of that story is that whenever you're talking to an animal, what you have to do is picture everything that you want them to do in the positive. And when I was thinking about the fish, I was picturing them coming out of the water, and I was picturing them coming up on the dock, and that's exactly what they did. The other thing is you want to try and stay away from using negatives. So for instance, if your dog jumps, you want to say, keep all fours on the ground or off rather than don't jump. Because if you say don't jump, then you picture your animal jumping, or you feel it in your body, them jumping. So you want to picture everything that you're saying in the positive. And that's my tip for you.